Black Desert Online is one of the games that always comes up whenever I talk about MMOs. I've made several videos on it, going over the pros and cons, and why overall, it's been one of my favorite MMO experiences from these past 10 years. It's a game that manages to combine elements of traditional MMOs, single-player RPGs, action, simulation, management, and farming games, all wrapped up into one package. Now, like any game, it's got its drawbacks. Notably, there's no traditional endgame PvE like dungeons or raids, a reliance on pets for efficient farming, and just a big overall emphasis on grinding. Now with that said, I've always thought that the pros outweighed the cons, and if you haven't played it and you like the MMO genre, I recommend checking it out. Now it's disclosure time because this video is being sponsored by BDO. Namely, they want people to know about some of their recent updates, adding a new Guardian class, this fierce female brawler, updating skills to ensure that both starting and awakened weapons are relevant at a high level, and the Great Expedition, a brand new expansion focused on ocean gameplay. But I wanted to use this video to kind of just go over some of my favorite aspects of the game, because again, I've been talking about Black Desert Online for the past 5 years basically in the numerous videos that I've put out, and there is a lot about this game that I really enjoy. So basically what I'd like to do is go over 5 of the reasons that you may want to play BDO. First up, and this is what's mentioned the most with this game, I would say is the combat. BDO is a game that does action combat well. Easily, it's some of the best in the MMO genre. It namely features a combo system where you can chain certain abilities to grant benefits like effect multipliers, reduced cost, and increased damage. But I think the big thing that they do is the input system, basically how you cast your skills. So there are keybinds in the game, like you can simply cast a spell by hitting the number 1 or 2 or 3, but alternatively, there's the system of using these combinations of WASD, shift, left and right click, and the space bar to cast your spells. Now this might sound more complicated than necessary, but what I found as a result was the combat felt really satisfying once you got a hang of it. There was this really nice rhythm to the gameplay. Now that combined with some pretty good sounds and animations overall gave the gameplay this nice impactful feeling. Most of the combat revolves around taking on hordes of enemies. Ideally, you'll be gathering large groups and taking them down with AoE abilities, and while not particularly challenging when you're doing any grinding, since it doesn't make a lot of sense to grind stuff that's too difficult to kill, again, I would say that overall the combat was a huge plus with this game, and it was just a very satisfying combat system. Like I always enjoyed playing BDO for the combat alone, but there's a lot more than that. The next big thing that I like is the big open world. You know, in general, I love games with seamless open worlds, MMOs in particular, and Black Desert Online is one of those. They've got this massive open world with no loading screens between the zones, which really I think adds to the immersion and the sense of scale of the world itself. The world also feels pretty populated. Like when you're exploring out in the wilderness and come across these enemy camps with hundreds of creatures, they're just absolutely packed, and I think that also plays into the fact that a lot of this game is about that AoE grinding. Besides the enemy creatures, the towns that you'll explore in this game as well also feel populated, filled with NPCs that are just basically going about their daily life. Like for example, you may head into a town at night looking to repair your gear, but the local blacksmith has gone to bed, so you're out of luck until the next morning, which, you know, kind of sounds like an inconvenience, but again, I think it lends to the other aspects of this game that make the world feel alive and populated. It feels like a real world rather than just this placeholder NPC that stands there 24/7, you know what I mean? It really helps things feel alive, and that also plays into the next thing, which is the game's non-combat activities. Like, yes, the combat feels good and it's fun, but there's so much more. There are these professions that they call life skills, so these will be things like farming, cooking, alchemy, fishing, and trading. Some of the cool elements that they have in BDO is that a lot of these actually involve these task-specific mini-games. So for example, milking cows has you alternating between left and right clicking, taking a little bit of milk out of one udder and then the other udder, and then going back and forth trying to maximize your efficiency. The cooking system as well, there's a lot of depth to it, so you'll go out in the world and you'll find ingredients, whether you're farming them from monsters or harvesting them in plants in the environment, and then you'll just throw an assortment of ingredients into a pot, mix them together, and then out will pop some recipes, and that's how you learn new things. You don't like find recipes in the world, you just learn them by combining things together. Now obviously you can go online and look up all the recipe combinations, but I just think it's interesting the way they present it as a base. And all of these life skills revolve around the use of an energy system that only lets you do so much per day. And I found that this kind of forced me to pick activities that I wanted to spend time on. So like when I was playing a lot, I was really focused on cooking and fishing. Those were the two big things that I did and that I spent most of my time doing, because if you try to do all of the life skills on one character, you won't be as effective or you won't progress as far. The next big thing I think that's really cool about this game is that there's just so much to do. So yes, there's the life skills, the fishing, the gathering, the cooking, etc. There's also these towns and housing systems. So all throughout the map, there are these various towns that you can go into and do these daily quests that will let you collect contribution points, and you can spend those points on buying homes. So there's a personal house that you can go into physically, place the cosmetic items as well as useful items like workstations, or a bed that lets you get a rested bonus experience. And again, you can kind of physically decorate and explore these locations. I know a lot of people like housing in MMOs, and I think they do a pretty good job here. But you can also use your homes for extra storage as well as a place for your workers to stay. There's a worker system. There are these NPCs that you will hire within the towns, and then you send them out to farms and mines and forest and other locations to gather resources. And they will actually physically go out and gather those resources. Like if you send one of your workers to the local blueberry patch, and you'll see them on the map moving there, and you can go there and actually see your worker. Again, they do so much in this game to make this feel like an inhabited world. It's pretty cool. And you'll have to provide your workers with housing in the towns. You'll have to feed them in order to get them to continue to work for you. There's also this node system where you can unlock and connect nodes at various towns and points of interest. And then this lets you set up these trading routes between the nodes, and you can ship items from one location to another. The further you ship it, the more money you end up getting. So it's another system that plays into the economy and the money-making aspect of the game. And then of course, beyond this stuff, there is the combat, like I mentioned before, and you can spend all your time just doing that and grinding if you want. And then I think that leads into my last big thing, the fifth thing that I really like about Black Desert Online. It really lets you play how you want. Like basically no matter what you do, it will progress your character. So there's a big emphasis overall on making money in the game, but you can make the money however you like. You could go out there farming mobs and collecting gear to sell, or just trash items to sell. You could do fishing and crafting. You could focus all on the node system and trading between the nodes and managing your towns and your workers. Basically, however you spend your time, you're going to be rewarded. The game also has no hard level cap. There is a soft cap in which gaining additional experience becomes a lot harder, but I found that without a hard cap, for me personally anyways, it alleviated a lot of the pressure that normally I feel in MMOs, where I want to rush straight to the end, get to the max, and then start doing the end game stuff. I never really felt that when I played this game, and I've played hundreds of hours of BDO at this point, and I think I just really enjoyed approaching this game a little bit different from how I typically approach MMOs. In fact, what I would kind of say is that I think one of the best ways that I felt to experience this game was more to approach it like a single player RPG that just has a ton of stuff you can do. Everything that I've talked about, whether you just like the combat and you want to grind, whether you want to focus on the life skills, gathering, fishing, you want to do like a management sim where you set up your trade nodes and manage your workers and do all these trade routes and stuff. There's so many different ways to play the game, and there's also other people in it. There is a big emphasis in this game on end game PvP, but you don't have to do that. And it's really weird because that's one of like for a lot of people, I think the PvP is a main driving point. But again, played hundreds of hours myself, never touched the PvP. I just didn't care to, and I got a lot of enjoyment just out of that. So, you know, there's a lot of different things you can like about games. And like I mentioned at the start, like any game, BDO isn't perfect. I do feel like the pros outweigh the cons. There's a reason I always mention BDO whenever I talk about like the best MMOs in the market. This is a game that always comes up in that top 5, and it's for a good reason. So I was happy to make this video, happy to introduce more people to the game if they haven't checked it out already, because again, I think that if you like the genre, this is one of those games that I think it's worth your time and worth checking out. Play it at your own pace, take it casually, don't get too serious or too intense about it. I really felt that that was the best way. And yeah, there you go. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.